So let's just dive right in. First of all, what is a natural swimming pool? Well, to remove some of the mystique about a natural swimming pool, there is nothing unique in the construction process or the construction materials of a natural swimming pool. We build natural swimming pools out of the same materials and construction methods that all regular swimming pools are constructed out of. It could be a gunite pool, it could be a fiberglass pool, it could be a vinyl pool, panel wall construction. So don't get all hung up on how the pool is built, because in many cases the project will define the construction method that's best suited for the needs of your specific project. Some may be more expensive than the other. It really is more of an engineering question than an NSP question. The one thing that is unique to a natural swimming pool, NSP, is that it's a biologically filtered pool. So we don't use any chemicals whatsoever. It's a constructed body of water, a closed system, isolated so that there is no infusion or intrusion of surface water runoff from heavy rains. There's no spring or stream or river that's feeding it. We want to control and close the area that's being defined as the natural swimming pool. So at least we have an understanding of what the biological filtration needs are. So we close the system. It is, BioNova does adhere to the construction standards and methods that are recognized and engineered as practices within the swimming pool industry. And what that means is, well, simply put it, they're safe to get into and get out of. So the depths, the diving and depth configuration, the slopes, entrance, egress is made so that it's safe for swimmers, bathers to easily and safely get into and get out of the vessel. And I will say that that is one of the differentiating things between BioNova's method for NSPs and simply just creating a swimming pond or a pond that you can swim in. Many ponds, the way they're designed, are kind of maybe dished out of the ground. They create a slope or a hazard that may not be easy to get into and out of. So our approach is to make sure that they're engineered and permitted as a swimming pool. If you speak to someone and say, oh yeah, well, I can build you a pond you can swim in, and wink, wink, nod, nod, it's okay, I would really caution you to understand the potential litigation that would be involved if someone was to be hurt in a pool that was not designed for swimming, but then was used for swimming. It's just not an environment that we want to be involved with. So all of our vessels are engineered according to the safety and construction standards for a swimming pool. And they do require a permit in most cases. As I mentioned before, they are all chemical free. We don't use a device. This is not a saltwater pool. There is no disinfectant oxidizer. And more pleasing is there is no water testing. There is no water balancing. The only maintenance required in a natural swimming pool is that you just clean it. And we'll talk more about those methods and processes here in a little bit. So from a standpoint of how it's naturally purified, the water is cleaned and clarified with the controlled and directed flow of water through a biological filter. Now, the biological filter can be primarily one of two types. The first type is what we refer to as a bioswim pond. Those are, as the picture on the screen shows you, integrated with aquatic plants. There is a wetlands area, and typically this wetlands area is the same square footage and size as the swimming area. So from a standpoint of design, we're, in these bioswim ponds, we're building a swimming pool for the plants and one for the people. And this picture that you see on the screen, you can notice that actually this was a single excavation. You can see that the wetlands area around the perimeter is the same square footage as the area that's allocated here for the swimming area. The water flows slowly, and as the name indicates, a swim pond mimics the ecosystem that is typical of a pond. Slow moving water, plants, passive water filtration through what we call sedimentation filtration. And it does a wonderful job of encouraging a whole nother level of aquatic environment. The ecosystem that creates obviously welcomes in wildlife that is looking for and seeking a nice wetlands environment. You will see reptiles and amphibians, dragonflies, the assortment of flora and fauna that are typical to a pond. The other type is a biopool, in which the biological filtration is done without the use of plants. Now, they do have one thing in common, and that is both systems leverage the biological water treatment on biofilm. Now, biofilm in its own right is just a microbiological wonderland. It's a agglomeration, a combination of beneficial bacteria, fungi, algae, all living together in this community. The film itself encapsulates the community, serves as a kind of a sequestering medium for nutrients to adhere to and be stuck to, basically serving as kind of a temporary pantry of the nutrients that it's capturing to feed the beneficial bacteria and fungi that are residents of the biofilm. The biofilm is a very diverse system of microorganisms, all with their own unique capability to take the nutrients from the water and create them through their metabolic output, create the metabolic needs of others in the environment. So it is definitely a symbiotic environment where all are living off each other. So in that case, those are the 4 criteria that we use to define an NSP. Well-defined swimming area, it's a closed system, it is permitted and engineered as a swimming pool, and there are absolutely no chemicals used whatsoever in the treatment of the biological treatment of the water. This, let me show you some examples. This is a Bioswim Pond example. You can see the swimming area is actually here in the background. The separate pond area is full of lotuses and lilies, and I am not a plant botanist or aquatic botanist, but I know someone who is. And that diversity of the types of vegetation are usually planted in 3 different zones. There's marginal grasses that you see growing along here as well as here. There's some submerged aquatic plants. They have a different role in their role in this ecosystem. And then there's deep water plants. Those are the sexy plants, so to speak. The lotuses, you can see a couple here that are in bloom. And there's such a diversity in color and texture, heights, and basically there's some tropical species that you may be able to plant in your area of the country. But ultimately, when we begin creating the menu of plants for this type of system, they are specific to your ecosystem, specific to your climate. We're not going to try to put tropical plants that we normally find in Central Florida and install them in Minnesota or Seattle. We will work with our plant specialists and make sure that the diversity of the plants are specifically suited to your own climate zone. This other pool is a little bit less complex. It is a single excavation. This is a very common way that we can build a bioswim pond, where we actually create an excavation, and you can see the wetlands area surrounds the perimeter of this isolated swimming area. You can see the steps that are entering here on this side, so there's good entrance. But you'll also notice that this segregation wall isolates and protects the plants from swimmers. We don't want swimmers wading around in the plants and disrupting the planted area. So we isolate those. There is some maintenance. As soon as you plant plants, whether they be in water or in the ground, you become a gardener. And as an aquatic gardener, there is seasonal requirements, typically in the spring and in the fall, where in the spring, you're going to be maybe thinning out any aggressive growth species. You'll notice some of the grasses sometimes will spread more rapidly than others. Some lilies and lotuses really have the tendency to spread and cover a big area. So there may be a little bit of thinning and pruning. In the fall, we want to cut back all the vegetation, typically right at the water line, and we'll remove that excessive vegetation so they don't end up in the water, decomposing and causing an additional organic mass that has to be acted on. Once that is done, then winterizing based on your area and climate is handled to either protect the area, protect the plumbing and the equipment, or it's going to be, if it's isolated and winterized properly and you're in a freezing climate, let it freeze and go ice skating if the ice is thick enough. The biopool, I just added this. This was one of the installations from our partner in Chile. Just to show, again, some diversity in style. You'll notice in many of our designs, based on the client's desire, that they like incorporating natural rock and features. The terrestrial planning tends to become a little bit more, a little closer to the edge of the pool. So as they grow, they tend to soften the edges of the pool. So this pool is actually a rectangular pool, but given the way that the coping and the surrounding area is landscaped, it softens the edge and gives a natural design. But at this point, I want to make sure that you understand the vessel does not make an NSP. It's the biological filter that makes it an NSP. We will work with our clients on the design to create an environment that matches the aesthetics that you're after. So they can be any number of forms and fashion. This particular one is a two-pot design, kind of very advanced in its architecture. You can see this has a vanishing edge where water is spilling over into the wetlands area that's below. Any of these engineering methods can be put into your pool. It's just a matter of the space you have to deal with and frankly, the budget you have to deal with. And we'll talk about some of the variables and options that will affect that. Also want to point out that we are very clear and want to be very clear in this presentation to help set the expectations that natural swimming pools are involved with living water. And living water means that in the swimming area itself, there will be beneficial bacteria and algae that are in the water column. We try to minimize that by creating an aggressive biological filter that will outcompete that biological need in the pool by the biology that's going on in the filter. But there will be a tint to the water, especially noticeable if you have a very white or very light colored interior. I think this is a great picture to show what we describe a chemically treated pool is kind of Windex blue, sparkling blue if it's well maintained. But in most cases, especially when we're using a swim pond type of design, there will be a tint to the water. So I'll caution you now, if your expectation is sparkling, brilliant, Windex clear water, no, that's not what this is. The water will be clear, but it will have a tint to it. You'll notice many of our designs actually have an interior surfacing coloration that's darker in colors. Darker colors, when you start playing with the dynamics and the physics of light, when we have a darker color interior, then the surface absorbs light as opposed to reflecting it. And it's that reflection and refraction of light that ends up making the tint more or less noticeable. So darker colors, grays, blues, we even have one that's called Eco Green that many like, will all lessen the appearance of that tint while giving it more of that natural look. Now, this is also a natural swimming pool. This is a bio pool. And if you didn't know and you walked up on this pool, this classic shape, the rectilinear design, it looked like a regular swimming pool. But you'll notice here in the corner, this is the biofilm filter I was describing earlier. It sits off to the side. It doesn't take up nearly the footprint of the natural wetlands environment in a bioswim pond, but it does a wonderful job. In fact, the thing that differentiates the biopool from the swim pond, other than no plants, is that it's mimicking the ecology of a stream. Faster moving water. In a stream, if you were to walk across a stream or waded in a stream and slipped on a rock, what you slipped on was the biofilm growing on the rock. In a river or stream that's actively moving, you won't notice a lot of plants in the moving water because they can't find the space or can't find an area that protects them from the water current and being washed away. You'll find them in eddies and backwaters and on the sides, but in the main current of the stream, the biological filtration is predominantly being done by biofilm. So that's what we're employing here with a biofilm filter. It is faster moving water, and because it is faster moving water, we typically notice that the water clarity and the tint is usually less in a biopool than it would be in a bioswim pond. Now, this is another rendering installation of a biopool. The biological filter at the end, smaller footprint. You can see we can scale these down pretty small for challenging and confined backyard project areas. But this is also a biopool. The shape is natural. The stone is natural. We even engineered and put a water feature waterfall to look like, oh, a cascading waterfall into the pool. That looks, and it is, but it's all done with hydraulics and plumbing. And when we can understand and identify the aesthetic that you're after, whether it's freeform or rectilinear, do you want a water feature like a waterfall? And I'd highly encourage it. Just the sound of water in these environments creates another dimension to the environment. But you'll notice the way this is planted, the overgrowth softens the edge and provides a wonderful natural environment. I don't doubt that many are sensitive to the oxidizers and sanitizers that are used and employed in a chemically treated pool, but typically it's not an allergy. It may irritate your skin and eyes because there is a very important need of maintaining water balance, which is why the frequent testing, the computerized water analysis that's done, the frequent shocking and adjusting of pH, the chemistry that's done is to ensure that the chemistry of sanitizers and oxidizers is working effectively to eradicate all the biology that's trying to thrive in the water. In a chemically treated pool, those things are referred to as contaminants typically. Skin oils, airborne, rain, snow, dust, those contaminants are consuming the chemical application. But in a natural pool, we look at those same contaminants as nutrients because they're naturally occurring. Environmental deposition in rain, wind, dust, snow, bathers, animals, those are all bringing natural environmental nutrients for the biology that's trying to survive and thrive on those nutrients. Many people want a non-chemical pool because they're trying to enjoy an environmentally sustainable lifestyle. There's certainly been an upswing in the number of folks that are seeking to find ways and methods to support their green living desires. We find that many of these folks are also interested in solar. We have some off-the-grid option incorporating solar and solar energy gain so that we could even design a natural swimming pool for off-the-grid application. I mentioned earlier, but I want to reemphasize, a salt pool is not a natural pool. It is a chemical pool. The salt is simply converted to chlorine, so it's a chlorinated pool. Some different chemical challenges in that, but still, it is a chemical pool. These are not treated with ozone. Neither are they treated with any type of biocide like zinc or copper or silver. Those all are harmful biocides to the biology that we're trying to nurture in the pool. So all of these things, and many of you may be a part of the groups that are looking for ways and methods to be environmentally responsible: electric cars, green roofs, upcycling, recycling, composting, using an alternative energy source. All these methods, all these ideals are certainly bolstering an audience of folks that are looking to apply their natural, sustainable lifestyle choices to their swimming pool. And that's simply what we're doing. Now, we haven't really invented anything. I say we, the audience of natural swimming pool builders, we haven't invented anything. We just recognized what nature requires in order to be sustained and optimize the opportunity for those natural processes to occur. This first swim pond that was built back in 1983 by Werner Gamrath in Austria actually doesn't even incorporate any pumps. It is constructed according to limnology principles. If you want to Google that or go into Wikipedia and search limnology, it is the study of the geology, science, chemistry, and biology of inland freshwater environments. And in that case, Werner just created a pond, created the size, the vegetation, and it's still in use today. The participants that are involved in this biological filtration, the microbiological community that's used, are divided into 3 different sets of responsibilities. And frankly, that's true of many of the food cycle, life cycles that you see in a food chain. There are producers, there are consumers, and there are reducers. There are some, like plants in this case, that can transform the UV sunlight that they get through photosynthesis and the creation of chlorophyll and sugars. And then that sugars, that biomass that's being created, then provides a food source for consumers like zooplankton, phytoplankton, small crustaceans. They eat the biomass, and because of their metabolism, as they eat it, they create oxygen and they reduce the amount of detritus. That's the organic load that naturally would form in a natural environment. Then the reducers are the beneficial bacteria and fungi that break down all the waste products that the consumers have created. And as they do that, they produce food through the nitrogen cycle. Now, when I say nitrogen cycle, some of you may have zoned out in elementary or high school chemistry, because it is an interesting process. And no, there's not going to be a test. But one of the things that I think is important to recognize, I mentioned that there's a whole assembly of microorganisms that work here. And just understand, they're also very, very rigid and very focused on their role in the process. Notice here, there is a particular type of bacteria, this heterotrophic bacteria, that will begin taking that detritus that I was mentioning earlier, right here, the reducers that are producing nitrate. Well, they ultimately produce nitrate by first creating ammonia. That ammonia, however, can't be metabolized by plants or phytoplankton or anything that relies on nitrogen. It's not until the nitrosomus bacteria converts it to nitrite, and then the nitrobacter bacteria that converts it to a nitrate that allows that nitrogen source to be uptaken by the plants. Now that's just a slice of the complexity that's going on. And folks, in all humility, all we're doing is optimizing conditions that allows this to occur and regenerate itself in the biological system that we create in the biological filter. Now, it's fair, and you should be, if you're not asking yourself, you should be wondering, well, wait a minute, Alan, just in the last week, I believe, Russell, I think in South Carolina, along the coast of South Carolina, they were talking about an invasive form of cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is typical in seasonal climates. If you Google red tide, you'll be able to find examples of it naturally occurring. And it occurs in environments where the amount of nutrients that inundate an otherwise stable system cause an excessive and overgrowth of this less than desirable pathogens. So how do these pathogens stay in check? Because they will have the opportunity to grow in a natural pool. Our natural swimming pools are not immune to it. The thing that controls detrimental bacteria, pathogenic bacteria and organisms, is the fact that our biological filter is designed to outcompete those organisms for the nutrients. Now, they want to live like everybody else, but the reality is, as the second bullet says here, the overwhelming population of beneficial organisms in this system overwhelm and outnumber detrimental pathogens, so they don't exist. And they don't exist so long as we keep the biological filter healthy and outcompeting these pathogenic organisms for the nutrients. There is a beautiful, an elegant way nature rewards this system. Those that are beneficial to the overall longevity of the system are rewarded. And in this case, nature has already defined the rules and regulations for purifying water, and it has awarded the beneficial bacteria an overwhelming majority of population so that they can outcompete those pathogenic organisms who exist in lesser numbers. You know, it's really no difference, as that second to the last bullet says, it's really no difference in our own biome. A lot of work has been done in the last years. We've seen all of these yogurt commercials and how to influence and encourage the probiotics in your own gut. Well, it's known. I mean, the numbers are kind of startling. In fact, if we were to take a population census of all the living organisms in our body, our human cells would be outnumbered by the bacteria that's in our body by 9 to 1. That's just a population count, not a mass count. It's a population count. But we know that when we become ill, it's usually because we haven't been getting good exercise. We're not eating a proper diet. We're not getting enough sleep. Our life is too stressful. Amen. Amen to stress and anxiety these past few months. So the systems that's being employed in a natural biological filter are basically adhering to the same role of biology that we witness and see in our own bodies. We keep it healthy, and our immune system is stronger. As our immune system is stronger, it fights off and wards off any type of supposed attack by a pathogen that may otherwise be wanting to make us ill. So let's go a little bit into the deep dive into the systems here. And I'm going to jump right to it. I talked about the bioswim ponds, the pond-related environment. You got a wetlands area that's the biological filter, getting the water from the swimming area and using plants to do that. The biopool, using a biofilm filter, simplifies that. You see at the bottom of the screen here, this is the biofilm filter installed on this particular pool. And yeah, look, Ma, no plants. It is a very streamlined and efficient way to incorporate a biological filter. It does require a smaller footprint. So it is easier to deploy. It is less costly because I'm not building 2 swimming pools. I'm just building a swimming pool for the swimmers and then creating a vault area to contain the biofilm filter. You can see it back here in the corner. I'll show you different examples on how and where this biofilm filter can be installed. Typically, we do like it attached directly to the pool. It encourages more efficient water flow, efficient use of the surface area of the water, since it is the surface area of the water in both the pond and the pool that is going to be gathering the environmental deposition of windblown dust and swimmer waste. That is going to be skimmed off more effectively through the skimmer attachments, skimmer plumbing that's on the pool, so that the water on the surface, the top 8 to 10 inches, is pulled over into the biofilm filter with the majority of the nutrients. And this system, as with the wetlands environment, runs 24/7 during the season in which it's going to be used. It can be used year-round. It can be used seasonally. That's all a matter of taste and capability based on your climate. As I mentioned earlier, biofilm really doesn't require anything for us to do to grow it. All we need to do is create an optimized environment for it to grow, and it will come, kind of like Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. If we create an environment that includes a stabilized temperature of water between 50 and 90 degrees, nutrients to feed it, and a source to be able to provide it, then biofilm will just naturally occur. So in those cases, all we're doing is creating a specific type of media. Sometimes synthetic materials can be used, but what we're trying to do is create a surface area. I'll show another picture a little bit later on about the guts of this system. It's actually full of rock substrate, typically limestone, that in that environment, it creates an enormous surface area for the biofilm to grow and proliferate. Let me show you this quick video of here you'll see kind of the guts of the biofilm system. Notice here's water level up here of the swimming pool. So the tops of these filter tubes, in this particular installation, there's 10 of these filter tubes. This is our BF4 biofilm system. The purpose of these filter tubes is to evenly distribute the flow of the water throughout this gravel substrate that surrounds all of these tubes. Inside each of these tubes is a sponge filter that also encourages the growth of biofilm. So the path that the water takes is, first, it will be pulled through the gravel to the bottoms of these filters. You can kind of see, and I don't know if I don't have a picture later that shows you, but there's a thinner piece of plumbing that comes up to the top of the filter tubes that's pulling the water down inside it. So the water is flowing through the gravel down, then up through the sponge, and then back down through that center pipe. And all of these pipes are then manifolded together into one central filtration manifold connected to that pump. So when the valve is on filter mode and the water is moving, water is spreading all throughout this gravel media, encouraging the growth of biofilm over time. How long does it take to grow biofilm? Depends on the time of year. We encourage people to open their pools and start them circulating as soon as possible. So as soon as the water temperature reaches that minimum of 50 degrees, really it's around 68 that really things kick off and grow quickly. Still too cold for me to swim in, but it's at a temperature that begins to influence the growth of the beneficial bacteria and fungi that are going to be resident in the biofilm. And as that grows, it takes about a week to 10 days in those kind of conditions before the biofilm has been fully, we reach a critical mass of the biofilm to really do its biological filtration. Let me also point out there's two other systems in this that are deployed, and it becomes an important part of the maintenance for the biofilm filter. This smaller 1-inch pipe that you see running and crisscrossing throughout the bottom, that's actually an air line. It's connected, it's stubbed up to a pipe at the top of the tank that's just open. It's usually capped off, but it's there for maintenance purposes. So in the spring, when you are opening up the biofilm filter, the very first thing that we do is we attach an air blower or shop vac or air compressor to that plumbing and blow air through that manifold, and it percolates through the water and gravel, dislodging the dead biofilm that's in there now. Because remember, if you shut the pool off in the winter to winterize it, then the biofilm, because you've shut off the flow of nutrients, the biofilm is going to die. Sorry about that, but now we need to regenerate the biofilm by dislodging the old dead biofilm. And we do that by percolating air through the substrate. Once that's done, it takes about 5 minutes or so of air blowing. Then we turn that filter valve over to a backwash position. And you notice there's another, it's a little difficult to see in this example. There's another manifold down here that's a backwash line. It's got slits in the side of it, so that now when the pump is pulling from the vault, it's pulling this backwash material, this dislodged biofilm, this biofilm sludge. It's a technical term. But I will tell you, I'm a gardener, and I'm always I'm composting, and I love a good natural fertilizer. And folks, this is fertilizer gold. So in the springtime, when you open up your biofilm filter, or even when you're cleaning the pond area in your swim pond, that material that you're vacuuming up is nutrient rich for your gardening needs. I'd highly encourage you to redeploy that for your purposes in landscaping. But that's the only maintenance that's required on the biofilm filter. Typically, that needs to be done about every 120 days. So depending where you are in the climate, you may have a season like in the Sun Belt where I am, where you can just about swim year round, except for maybe February and January. But the water temperature could certainly be suitable if maintained through solar heating. But so long as you've got water flow through there and the water temperature is being maintained in that 50 to 90 range, the biofilm will continue to grow. Now that is a differentiating thing about the bio pool with the biofilm. Because the water is moving more quickly, because we're not using plants, and remember now, in a bioswim pond with a planted environment, those plants are going to go through their seasonal dormancy the way all the other plants do. You know, this time of year as we're losing leaves and the fall color is looking wonderful and dropping. Well, we know that's temporary. The trees are going into dormancy. They're losing water and draining water out of the trunk so that they're not exposed to severe winter climates. And then when the temperature grows up and the daylight hours get longer, plants take their signals from nature to begin this regeneration of growth. And the same thing's happening in our bio pool and our bio swim pond. Now, the bio pool can, the biofilm filter can be installed in numerous different ways. I'm showing you two different examples here. You can see in the left-hand example, the biofilm vault is here underneath this deck area. They've raised it up to be a tripping hazard. It can be flush, but it's a modular panel because we do need to get to the top of this biofilm filter during our maintenance time, because we're going to pull those sponge filters out to hose those off. I think I got a slide picture of that here in a second. But it doesn't have to be next to the pool. The picture on the right, you can see that it is actually detached from where the swimming pool is, and we just connect it with plumbing. It's a plumbing exercise at that point. We do want to make sure that it's located close enough to where the hydraulics work, where we're not losing a significant amount of head pressure or friction loss in the water flow, and that it's suitable. We want it to be ideally gravity fed from the pool so that we can get the most efficient water flow. I'll also point out from a standpoint of economics and energy efficiency that because these systems are open atmosphere filters, and that's true of the swim pond and the bio pool, the amount of energy that a pump requires to move water is not nearly as much as that's in a regular pool. Because see, in a regular swimming pool, the pump is pulling water directly from the pool and then pushing it over into a filter. That filter is pressurized, and that back pressure creates energy or strain against the motor, so the motor has to turn harder to maintain the same gallon per flow rate. We don't have to do that. It's open atmosphere, and we get very efficient operation of our pumps. In fact, in most pools, we can estimate the cost of pool pump operation at about the same as that of a couple of 200-watt light bulbs. Very minimal. And we can, like I said, we use energy efficient, variable speed, programmable pumps. So we can plug in and program it in to deliver the exact flow rate that we need. Because that is one of the parts of the secret sauce of these systems. The flow rate, depending on the biological filter, needs to be maintained according to the needs of the biological filter system that we've got deployed. There's several of the different designs. You know, your imagination is the only obstacle here. I particularly like the installation here on the lower right. Here's the biofilm filter. These are like scupper gutters that are connected to the pool. The pump in this case is located underneath this little hatch for servicing. And as the water pulls from that biofilm filter, water pours from the surface area of the pool into the biofilm system. The biofilm system over here is in the corner. In this pool in the top left, it's here under ornamental rocks at the end. You can also see they've got an ornamental water feature that's spilling out into the pool. That's fine. Here's another one with a zero edge, vanishing edge pool. The biofilm filter is just below that. So any number of types of construction methods can be used to hide this system. And this is kind of the guts of it. The BF4 system, the one that's being showed can treat systems up to 535 square feet of surface area. Let me make a point about that. We are not so worried about the gallonage of the swimming pool as we are the surface area. In a chemically treated pool, that's a little bit different because gallonage is their focus. It's, you know, number of pounds per gallon of water to treat it. In a biological pool, we know that all the nutrients that are going to be hitting the water coming from the atmosphere, they're coming through the surface. So we need to know and calculate that surface area. It's through that calculation of surface area that we then size the appropriate size for the biological filter. Like I said, in this case, this particular example, this particular setup, it'll treat up to 535 square feet of water. Now, one caveat, a little asterisk here. If you've got a 500 square foot pool and you've got 3 golden retrievers and twin 12-year-olds with t-ball friends or soccer friends that are going to be in the pool all day, 12 hours a day, then that's a heavy bather load. And the amount of biological filtration needed for that type of system may be different than a similar sized pool that has a different biological need. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we understand how the pool is going to be used and who is going to be using it. It's better to have more filtration than not. So we will oversize and overbuild a biological filter in anticipation of peak needs. There's no such thing as too much filtration in any kind of swimming pool, and that's the case here as well. Here's that, this is that sponge foam center that you see. See it's got a hole through the center. That's what slides down over that center pipe in the filter manifold. This complicated piece of equipment here is just an umbrella stand. It's the easiest way to slide it on to there and then just hose it off. Do not use detergents. Do not use a pressure washer. Just hose it off with a regular nozzle and then pop it back in after you're finished doing the air feed to bubble out and clean out the biofilm. And it's slide back in and it's ready to go. The typical size, and I'm focusing on this size of biofilm filter because that's kind of the average size pool. 16 by 32, 512 square feet. So for an average size 16 by 32 pool, the biological filter required for that would be approximately 4 feet wide, approximately 10 feet long, and approximately 6 feet deep. Now, we can construct and move and manipulate this area a lot of different ways based on the design needs for your pool. But this is a pretty common method for construction. This is kind of a common layout. You can see the vault here, all the manifolds. I'll point out also at this point, we will always design in an auxiliary filter system, like a regular swimming pool filter, on our systems. And the reason for that is so that we have a way and an easy means to vacuum and clean the pool. You'll notice that we have a vacuum line that's plumbed in here. And when we can put a robotic cleaner in the pool. That robotic cleaner, like a Roomba, can roam around and vacuum and sweep and scrub, and in the same time, it's expelling the material that it's vacuuming, scrubbing off the pool. And in this case, we would orient the valve so that all that material is ended up in the filter. It makes it a lot easier to clean that filter. In this case, it's clean just like a regular old backwash system on a sand filter. We do use glass media that's a little bit more larger surface area, lasts longer, less maintenance. But that's a standard setup for us. In most cases, we'll also add an additional pump so that we've got a pump dedicated to the biofilm filter and a pump that's used occasionally for the auxiliary filter. I'll also say that this auxiliary filter can also be employed during your 4th of July party. When you've got 20 soccer ballers in your backyard, in your pool, when you've got your whatever, heavy bathing load environment, there's no such thing as too much filtration. So in kinds of heavy bather load demand, turn the auxiliary filter on, and it will at least help encourage to remove suspended matter that may be gathering in the water otherwise. The biofilm filter, again, it's going to run 24/7. Auxiliary filter just kind of runs as needed or when you want to clean the pool. Here's another orientation, different way to orient the biofilm filter in a single file as opposed to tandem rows of 2. That can also be bent around the corner to where it's like L-shaped. So again, don't get hung up on that. We will help in the design process to identify the best and most efficient use and installation of the system. From a standpoint of planning and design, this is kind of a typical design rendering. This is a 16 by 36 rectilinear pool. It's got a deep end bench across here. It's 7 feet deep in water depth. This is not a diving pool. If it were a diving pool, it would have to be down to about 8 feet. And depending, I'd encourage 8 to 8.5 feet. And as a result, these slopes change. And this is what I was referring to earlier about designing the slopes and depths according to regulations and engineering accepted in the swimming pool industry. And it's intended to make sure that the water environment is safe. Steps in the deep end, and here's our biological filter, the biofilm filter here on the end. We've got another picture of this project in construction. This particular pool is a panel wall construction. I can construct this same pool out of a gunite pool. It could be a fiberglass pool, though it's tough to get a pool, fiberglass pool this big. This particular pool interior is a pool hide, 60 mil, reinforced PVC membrane. We love using this material, very long-lived, very durable, darn near bulletproof, definitely dog-proof. Dogs are not going to rip or tear it. And the difference between this type of liner system and, say, a standard regular pool industry liner is that these particular type of liners, these are all hand welded on the site to conform to the inside dimensions of what's been designed in the pool. So the material arrives on the site like a roll of carpet, and it's peeled off in lines and then welded together in a customized manner. The floor is a firm composition of vermiculite and concrete. But like I said, this is just one method for construction. It's just a great way of demonstrating how this integration of the biofilm filter, in this case, this is a dual biofilm vault. It's 580 square feet of swimming area. If you're taking notes, you can refer back and say, oh, wait a minute, a single biofilm filter is up to 535 square feet. So in this case, because they do have dogs and do want to entertain a lot, we say, well, let's just double the size of the filter. So that's what this represents. This is the pool in another phase of construction. You can see the tops of the filter tubes. These are rubber and removable. If I were to remove that, you'd see the top of that green foam sponge, filter sponge that's down inside it. And that vault goes down approximately 6 feet deep, 5 feet 9 inches from top to bottom. The pool is not yet finished filling up, and it will actually be filled up with about another 6 to 8 inches of water. So that you can see these are all below the normal water level of the pool. You can also see that I've got 2 other skimmers here. This is to feed the auxiliary filter system that'll also be a part. So this system will have 2 pumps, one for running the biofilm filter, one for running the auxiliary filter. We routinely get the question, well, I really like that concept of the biofilm filter because it's less space, it's less complex, less money, but I really do like the plants too. Is there any way I can get plants incorporated into a design with the biofilm filter? Oh, the short answer is yes. So the longer answer is maybe. Because see, understand the biofilm filter, because the water is moving so much more rapidly through that system than what is typically acceptable for a pond environment, the biofilm is going to outcompete any plants for the nutrients in the water, and as a result, the plants will not thrive. They might grow, they may cripple along, but it's not the best environment trying to incorporate plants in the same body of water in which we're using a biofilm filter. They'll just starve to death. In this particular case, we just designed a pond adjacent to the pool. We've done this in a lot of different ways. This looks a little bit more segregated. But you can see on the side here, they've got a koi pond. And this is the only environment in which we would allow or suggest to include koi because it's an isolated environment. These are 2 different bodies of water. This body of water with the biofilm filter and the swimming area that you see here is one isolated circulation system. The ornamental pond just outside of that is its own ornamental pond, ornamental aquatic garden pond. And you can plant in there whatever you like. So we can work with designs to incorporate a natural pond-like look, but operate in separate systems. So the uneducated observer, in some cases, looking at these designs, they would not know that it's 2 separate systems. But it is accomplished just through isolating the hydraulics and treating them as 2 separate bodies of water. I'm going to scan through. I'm coming up to the end. I want to get to a point where you can have time for some questions that you can ask. Lighting is another feature and function that I think you should consider. You notice this is a biofilm pool. The biofilm filter on this system runs the entire side of this pool. You can tell also by the mountains, we ain't in Kansas anymore. This is one of our partners in Austria that constructed this pool. Another installation, another small patio pool. We've got a lot of opportunity to create small plunge pools using biofilm systems. This is actually a preformed one-piece fiberglass pool that has an adapted biofilm filter on the end. You can see it's a vault with a modular top. The decking can lift up so we can service it when needed. But another example of how these installations can vary widely. We saw an example of this pool a little bit earlier. I'm guessing that the rock work on this pool cost more than the pool itself. But again, to point out, there's really nothing beyond our capabilities. If you can think it and dream it and afford it, we can build it. It's that simple. Again, biofilm filter underneath the wooden platform here. Another example, simple installation. This, as a matter of fact, this very simple, this is about a 12 by 24 pool. A great design. If you're looking for just something to soak in, float in, cool off in, you don't need a lot of water to do that. A 12 by 24 pool built with a biofilm filter is going to be a very inexpensive way to get into the natural swimming pool environment. I'm going to talk about some of the cost-related things in a general point in just a little bit. Again, a great way to accentuate. We also know that the pool usually is just part of the overall outdoor living space you're trying to create. It's kind of a good idea if we know at the beginning, kind of like Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. If you've got a master plan of how you want this area to be used in the future, whether it's a pergola, outdoor kitchen, fire pit, volleyball court, whatever, if we know as much about how this whole area is going to be used, then it really does help in us manage and design the pool so that it gives you the best and optimum use of the area without trying to think of, okay, well, the pool is one project, then the outdoor living space is another. No, it needs to be thought of as a one big comprehensive project. It doesn't need to be accomplished all at once, but if we know some of these things in advance, then we can do things like maybe running conduit, plumbing lines, foundation pillars. When we've got the yard in such a mess at the very beginning, might as well get that all done at one point. So when you're ready to go into the next phase, it just makes it a little easier. So what's it going to cost? From our standpoint, a brand new bio pool of about 535 square feet, it's going to be about $75,000. The Bioswim Pond, using the wetlands regeneration sedimentation filter, since it's a much larger footprint, the average is about $120,000. Conversions, yes, we do conversions, and we've been doing more and more of them, where folks have an existing swimming pool and want to convert them to a natural pool. Well, the easiest way to do that is to add a biofilm filter, and I've got a slide here in a second to show how that can slice out. We can also take an existing swimming pool and add a wetland sedimentation filter to create a pond. So that's all in play as well. It's just, we need to know kind of what you got in mind and how you intend to use it. So the way we get involved is, let's discuss your project. Find out what it is about yours. We collaborate on the best design. That's usually initiated by a conversation. Many of those conversations start like this on Zoom. Very helpful to be able to show and demonstrate. I like seeing satellite views of the plot. If you have renderings or designs that you want to share and show what it is that you've captured from Pinterest or Houzz or some other web search of styles that you like, it's a great environment to be able to share and collaborate. Ultimately, once we get engaged, we're engaged through a pre-construction planning process, we'll need a topographic survey. The topo survey gives us a good lay of the land to understand and mitigate any surface water, establish a good finish elevation for the swimming pool, and pictures of the site. If you're close and located to where one of our crews or dealers be, then we'd be scheduling an on-site site visit to put boots on the ground and take a look at the all in, where the equipment's going to go, where the utilities come in, if there's any features or part of your house or patio that you want to blend into or incorporate or transition to the pool from. It gives us a good opportunity to do that. However, I do want to point out that because the construction method for a NSP is no different than a regular swimming pool, if you're not in an area where we have a BioNova dealer, we just need to collaborate with a pool contractor. So any good pool contractor, if you have a neighbor that was satisfied with a pool contractor, I told you I've been in the pool industry all my life. I know a lot of pool contractors throughout the country, and we can help get them engaged in the process. And typically, if you were to go to them and say, hey, I'm thinking about installing a natural swimming pool, do you build natural swimming pools? The answer is going to be no, because they don't. But that's not a good question. You just need to find out if they're a good, reputable contractor, and would they be willing to collaborate with us to integrate a biological filter into their design. And in that case, they can do the design and layout of the pool and area. They can pull the permit, and then we can make sure that the biological filter that's installed and incorporated as a part of their design is appropriate for that function and use. we need to have some of our own boots on the ground to collaborate and consult on site during construction, we can arrange to do that. But the real issue is, don't get hung up on the fact, oh, there's nobody in my area that builds a natural pool. That's not the obstacle. The obstacle is just finding a good, reputable contractor that you're willing to work with and that would be willing to work with us. But I want to forewarn you, folks, the last 6 to 7 months in this country have been crazy. I know, understatement at best. But what it's also done is in this age of isolation and staying at home orders, many people, lots of people have decided to bump up adding pools to their outdoor living spaces on their priority list. And the pool industry is absolutely overwhelmed and inundated. I know many contractors who currently are looking at, if you were to get on their installation list now, it wouldn't be until spring of 2022 before they could get to it. So depending on where you are and depending on who you have engaged, don't expect that this is going to be something, just because it's fall of 2020 right now, don't expect that you're going to have a contractor or can get a contractor on your site for a spring installation in 2021. Best way to find out, I mean, our project list right now is on about a 6 to 8 month lag. So if you were to engage us in a pre-construction planning agreement, we could get engaged, and if we were just collaborating with a local builder, we could probably get that design done, depending on the complexity of the installation, in 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. But if we were to start it, we're easily 8 months out for our crew. So it really just depends on, well, a lot of variables, and we kind of go through those in the pre-construction planning process to give you the best opportunity. So conversions for or adding to a regular pool, this is pretty good general math. We need a vault to put the biofilm filter in. This is for the BF4, the biofilm filter. The vault, it could be 6,000, it could be 2,000. You could build that out of concrete block if you wanted to. But we do have modular systems that can be bolted and sealed together, and those systems start at around $6,000 for installation on site. The BF4 system itself is $7,500. So if you're just looking at, well, what's the BF4 cost? $7,500. But you need a place to put it, and you need a pump, skimmer, valves to run it, and those are going to run around $2,500. And typical installation, I highlighted that because that's just a scientific wild guess. Generally speaking, that'd be pretty average to excavate and install the vault for the BF4 and install the system and install the plumbing. So you're looking at about $21,000-ish added on to the cost of a regular pool, or for the cost of converting an existing pool. A lot of variables, you need to give me some leeway here because it's tough to know every person's situation and the dynamics involved in construction. But everybody wants to know, well, what's it going to cost? Is it the same price? No, it's not the same price as a regular swimming pool. It's the same price per square foot to construct, but since we are incorporating this additional biofilm filter, at most, you're going to be at least $10,000 with pumps, skimmers, and the system. And then however you use it to enclose the vault, that can be managed and done many other ways. I don't know. Well, if there's bear in your backyard, I don't care what you build your pool out of. If a bear decides to go swimming in, it doesn't matter whether it's a NSP or a regular pool. I've seen humorous pictures of bear frolicking around in pools. If it's hot enough, the bear gets to do whatever bear wants to do. Hey folks, this is real easy because the biggest problem in a regular or chemically treated pool is the either corrosion or scale formation due to the chemistry that's involved. That's why they do this water balance analysis of the water to make sure that the water is neither too corrosive or too scale forming. That's what the water balance is trying to balance into this little neither corrosive nor scale forming. If, depending on the type of sanitizing system that you're using, if it's a corrosive environment, it will definitely accelerate the deterioration of the pool's interior and equipment. So NSPs will definitely last longer because we let nature basically manage the water balance. The system manages itself in accordance to what's needed for the geography that you're built in. We are not paranoid and obsessive compulsive about pH. pH in natural water can range from 6 to 9. So we don't have to have it at 7.5. It can be anywhere in that range, and it's really predicated on the geology or the climate zone and area of the country where you are. Yeah, well, the flow rate in the biopool is going to be approximately 70 gallons per minute. That's replicating more of a stream ecosystem. In a wetlands environment, the flow rate is much less, at about 15 gallons per minute. It's to accommodate the needs for the plants, the time that they need to lift and remove nutrients from the water, moving the water slow enough so that the plants, as well as biofilm that's in the substrate, can pull the nutrients out. It doesn't have to be oxygenated artificially. The flow rate and the movement of the water and the flow through the water is providing all the air and aeration needed to encourage aerobic bacteria issues. Ponds, where this question may be coming from, is in ponds, if they get too deep and you're not circulating that bottom water and all the detritus settles to the bottom, that organic matter, as it decomposes, will totally deoxygenate the water, creating an anaerobic environment. And when that anaerobic environment happens, then all the beneficial attributes of the aerobic bacteria are obsolete. They can't do their job, which is why in many ponds, deep water aeration points are used to infuse oxygen at lower levels, as well as create kind of a vertical circulation column of water to mix as well. Yeah, well, yeah, in this case, I wouldn't use a liner material. I would probably go with a system, a thermal resin. We use it called Finish. You can Google that, Finish Aquabrite. It can be applied to many different type of substrates, and in this case, Jennifer, we could do a panel wall construction, but this membrane, this waterproofing technique with the thermal resin is not a liner. It adheres directly onto concrete, wood, steel, composite materials, fiberglass. So it's exceptionally good about that. But it also, the pool hide is exceptional. But honestly, the bear gets in the pool and tears the liner. Good thing about the pool hide is it's very easy to repair. You don't have to replace the whole liner. Well, no, the costs don't scale. The cost per square foot, like in the cost of construction of a house, the cost per square foot of a small house is going to be higher than the cost per square foot of a larger house of similar type of construction details. So yeah, there's some economies of scale in construction. As I get to a 1,000 square foot pool, then the cost per square foot is lower because I've got some economies of manufacturing. So yeah, to your point, yeah, the example I gave, $120,000 for the average bioswim pond, yeah, it's $120 a square foot as opposed to $150 a square foot. We've built $200 a square foot pools, but they were maybe 12 by 20 or 10 by 20. You reach a point where the act of installation, excavation, construction, I mean, you got kind of an all-in cost for a contractor just to get on the site and begin construction. The bigger the project gets, the lower the cost per square foot gets, but that's a fair assumption. That is, as the project size increases, cost per square foot kind of goes down. What other kind of material? I'm assuming you talk about the substrate. Limestone is ideal for the biofilm substrate. We've used granite before. Granite's good. We do like limestone for one particular reason, and that is it does impart some level of carbonation to the water. Carbonate. Because limestone is calcium carbonate. When it slowly dissolves over time, there's a little bit of carbonate that's imparted to the water, influencing a little bit higher pH. And actually, biofilm likes a little bit of nudge on that high pH side, so that's why I like biofilm. It's nice, but not necessary. But we'd be able to help you. In fact, I've got a cohort in Argentina that I'd probably turn you over to and help them work with you locally on your specific needs. If you haven't already, you can email me and say, yeah, I need a contact. Your contact in Argentina, I can get you all hooked up. Yes, sometimes. In most cases, when we bid the project at the very early stages of proposal, we won't include plants in the proposal, and we'll specifically call out that plants aren't included. Instead, I would have you connect with my plant specialist and identify the types, the textures, the colors. She needs to know the geography, the size and scope of the project. And I mean, there's some lotuses out there that get shipped in from really exotic places in the world that could be several $100s easily per lotus. And if they're not planted in the right area, you may be planting them every year. If you have any other questions or you want to discuss this more specific to your project, feel free to reach out to me. I'll send you a link where we can set up and do a Zoom meeting like this and go through some of the installation design options and what it is you're looking for. And we can get a little bit closer to understanding what your budget may need to be. Thanks again for joining us, and thanks again for reaching out to BioNova for answers to your natural swimming pool. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.